Hey everyone, welcome back. Again, this is Miss Mannering and I teach 4th grade ELA at Cypress Point University Elementary. Today in our lesson, we are going to be reading and talking about Chapter 7 of The Whipping Boy. So hopefully in front of you, everyone has a copy of The Whipping Boy. If not, don't worry, you can follow along with me. But what I do need everyone to have is a pencil and a piece of paper to use during this lesson. So if you don't have that, run, go get it now, or if you're on YouTube watching this, you can pause the video and come back when you have your paper and pencil and you're ready to go. So far in our distance learning journey, we have read chapters 1 through 6 of The Whipping Boy. Today, we are going to read chapter 7 of The Whipping Boy. We are also going to refer to details and examples from the text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. Now you may say, Miss Mannering, hold up, wait a minute, what do those words mean? Well, let's talk about it. So when it says what the text says explicitly, that's any information that you can find directly in the text. So if the text says the dog was brown, and I ask you what color was the dog, you can go back and find right there in the text, the dog was brown. So that's when it says explicitly, when you find the answer right in the text. However, when we are drawing inferences, that's when we take what the text says, and then we use our brain, our background knowledge, other things that we know about maybe that story or that setting, our life experiences, and we make a guess about what might be happening in the text. It's not exactly clear in the text, but we can use our brains to figure out, I think this is going on. And then lastly, we are going to describe a shift of power that occurs in this chapter. So, who's in charge is going to change in chapter 7. So I'm going to read chapter 7 of The Whipping Boy. If you have your text in front of you, now's a great time to pull that out, follow along with your finger or a pencil, and you can even read out loud with me. If you do not have that, it's okay. You can follow along on the screen, and you can still maybe with your finger follow along or read it out loud with me. And then as I read, I want you to pay close attention to who is in charge during this chapter. Who has the power during this chapter? And again, like I said a while ago, I gave you a hint. It's going to change from beginning to end. So before we read, just to catch everyone up, in chapter 6 of The Whipping Boy, Cutwater and Billy, the two criminals, have taken Jimmy, the whipping boy, and Prince Brat back to their hut, or their home. So they've taken them back to their home, and when those two criminals were going through their belongings, they found the prince's crown. And that told the criminals, this really is the prince, and they know that they can get a lot of money for the prince. So that's where we left off. And let's begin reading chapter 7, being an account, a great mix-up. Cutwater rummaged around in a black oak chest of stolen goods. Handkerchiefs flew out like soiled white doves, worn shoes, ladies' combs, a cowbell, a junk heap. They've had lean pickings, this raggedy pair of highwaymen, Jimmy thought, and maybe not as smart and clever as the song sellers made out. So remember, Jimmy has already heard of Hold Your Nose Billy. He was a famous criminal. But whenever Jimmy looks at all of their belongings, a lady's comb, a cowbell, he's thinking, they don't have great items to be famous criminals. Let's continue reading. Here's a scrap of paper, Billy, said Cutwater, finding it in the pocket of a stolen coat. But how are we going to write? How are we going to do the scribblement or write? We can't write. I've seen it done. sharpened as a hawk's feather, Cutwater. I'm hungry, complained the prince. I'll have a veal pie, sir. Hold Your Nose Billy ignored him. He poked around for a beetroot and squeezed out the juice with his bare hand. It dripped like blood onto a china plate. There's ink for you, Prince. Take the hawk's feather and scratch out a message. Prince Brat folded his arms. I don't take orders from curs and villains. Think of your pa, said Hold Your Nose Billy. He'll be ever so obliged, or happy, to know that you're safe and hearty. I told you I'm hungry. You won't eat a bean until you do us this document. So Billy's saying, you're not going to eat anything, Prince Brat, until you write for us. I can't write, blurted out Prince Brat. And crows can't fly, erupted the big outlaw with a blast of garlicky breath. You're a prince. Kings and such, like are learned to write and read as soon as they tumble out of the cradle. Don't think you can pull the wool over our eyes. Hop to it. So I want to stop right here, and it sounds like Hold Your Nose Billy and Cutwater, they aren't believing Prince Brat whenever he says he can't write. Why wouldn't they believe him? Look back in the text. Why wouldn't they believe him when he said that? You're exactly right. They did not believe Prince Brat because they knew that all royalty learned to read and write. In the Middle Ages, no one else learned that except for those who were royal. So they're really confused as to why a prince wouldn't know how to write. Is Prince Brat lying? No, we remember earlier in the story, Prince Brat refused to do his work. But who could write? Exactly. Jimmy learned to read and write whenever Prince Brat refused to do his work. So let's see what happens next. But I can't so much as scratch my own name. Jimmy shot a calculating glance at Prince Brat. His pesky hide hardly seemed worth saving, but a scheme had leaped into his head. He might be able to trick these mangy outlaws into letting the prince go, and Jimmy would be rid of Prince Brat once and for all. Give me the hawk's quill. I'll write the words, he announced. That's right, Prince Brat chimed in. My whipping boy knows his letters. Fall to, Jimmy from the streets. Hold on, said Hold Your Nose Billy, his sharp gaze flickering from one boy to the other. This ignorant whipping boy knows his letters, and the royal prince can't sign his own name? Something's amiss here. Something's wrong here. What you thinking, Billy? Asked Cutwater. I'm thinking these lads have mixed themselves up to flummox us, or to trick us. Jimmy lifted his chin arrogantly and tried to look as prince-like as possible. Nonsense! I'm a mere whipping boy. The big man rumbled up a laugh, showing a mouthful of yellow teeth. You take us for bedrock numbskulls? Certain as eggs, you're the prince, the genuine straight up and down royal highness. Prince Brat's face turned red as hot iron. That ratty street orphan, he bellowed. That lowborn. Silence, Jimmy commanded. Can't you see the game is up? They're on to us. Hold your tongue. What is Jimmy pretending to be right now? What do you think he's pretending to be? What is Jimmy doing? You're right, Jimmy is pretending to be the prince. He's pretending to be like a prince. But I'm his royal highness. God, Jimmy thought, this haughty prince didn't have the sense of a gnat. Couldn't he see a plane afoot? Save your breath, snapped Jimmy. Stop giving yourself airs, you witless servant boy. Servant boy? Dare you address me? Bag your head, snapped Hold Your Nose Billy. Give him a kick, Cutwater, if we hear another peep out of him. Hand me the hawk's feather, said Jimmy. I'll write my papa, the king. Alrighty, so let's talk about what we just read. So, again, throughout this story, Prince Brat still thinks he's in charge. We know that normally in the feudal system, which was the government during the Middle Ages, the royalty, the kings, the queens, the princes, they were always at the top. They were always over everyone else. And Prince Brat still thinks that. So let's think about what evidence from the text shows us that Prince Brat still feels that he has power, even though the two boys have been kidnapped. Well, if I go back to the text, I can see here, Prince Brat is still calling Jimmy a servant boy and speaking down to him. Right here it says Prince Brat's face turned red as a hot iron. So he was still mad. He was calling Jimmy a ratty street orphan. He was earlier in the story commanding for food from the two criminals. So all of those details show us that Prince Brat still thinks that he's in charge. He's completely clueless as to what's going on and the fact that two criminals have kidnapped him. So let's talk about Jimmy in the story. How does Jimmy's attitude and actions change after the outlaws think that he is the real prince? And why do you think they changed? Well, we talked about earlier how Jimmy started acting like a prince. He spoke with his head up. He talked down to Prince Brat and pretended that Prince Brat was the whipping boy. So he was trying to pretend to be a prince. He was acting like a prince. Why do you think Jimmy was doing that? Well, I remember earlier in the text, at the beginning of the chapter, it says that a plan had jumped into his mind. A plan to get rid of Prince Brat forever. So Jimmy has a plan. He's trying to trick Cutwater and Hold Your Nose Billy to think, that Jimmy is the real prince. And he has some kind of plan to get rid of the real Prince Brat. And we'll find out exactly what that plan is in the next few chapters. And then how does Prince Brat react to Jimmy's plan? As always, Prince Brat has no idea what's going on, and he just gets really, really mad. Okay, so I told you as we were reading to look out for who has the power in this chapter. Who is in charge? So let's think about who is in charge or who thinks that they are in charge at the beginning of the chapter, and why? Well, we know Prince Brat always thinks he's in charge. He always thinks he's over everyone else. So we know Prince Brat thinks he's in charge because that's what he's used to. He's used to being at the top of everyone else. But I think someone else thinks they're in charge here. Cutwater and Billy think they're in charge too. I mean, they're stronger, they're criminals, it's even said they're murderers, so they're really tough guys that are much bigger than Prince Brat and Jimmy. So I'm sure they think they're in charge because they're in their own house. And they could kill the two boys if they wanted to. Now let's look at the end of the chapter. Who has the power at the end of the chapter, and why do you think that? So I want everyone to scream out really, really loud. At the end of the chapter, who has the power? You're exactly right. Jimmy has the power at the end of the chapter. He's the only person who can read and write. He's the only person who knows exactly what's going on because Prince Brat is confused all the time. And then Cutwater and Billy think that Jimmy's the real prince. So Jimmy is the only person who knows exactly what's going on, and he's the only one who can read and write. So I think that Jimmy is in charge at the end of chapter 7. So before we go, we're going to do one more activity talking about chapter 7. And we're going to work on using the conjunctions because, but, and so. Now, I know everyone's done this before, but just a quick review. Because explains why something is true. But is a change of direction in the sentence. And then so shows us cause and effect. One thing happened, so another thing happened. So our directions are to complete the sentence stem using because, but, and so. And our sentence stem is Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge. So let's finish this together. Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge because, so why do Cutwater and Billy think they're in charge? I know we talked about earlier, because they're stronger. So I'm going to say because they are stronger than Prince, Brat, and Jimmy. Now before we finish our sentence, make sure, let's go back and reread it and look, make sure we have capital letters and punctuation and that it makes sense. Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge because they are stronger than Prince, Brat, and Jimmy. Now I've capitalized my proper nouns, that's great. But look, I forgot my period right here. Let's go ahead and let's add that period. Okay, great job. We proved why they think they're in charge. Now let's look at our next one, but. Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge, but. So what's something different? They think they're in charge, but what's really going on? Who's really in charge? That's right, Jimmy is the real one in charge here. He's the one who knows what's going on. He's the one who can read and write. So Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge, but Jimmy is actually in charge. And again, have your period there. Now, if you're doing this from home, feel free to write out this sentence, but don't start right here. You need to rewrite it from the very beginning. That we have the entire thought, and you can practice writing a complete sentence. Okay, and then our last one. Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge. So this is our cause. They think they're in charge. What's our effect? What do Cutwater and Billy do because they think they're in charge? Well, I know they're really bossing around the two boys. They're telling them what to do. They're stealing their belongings. So I think I'm going to go with they eat all of the prince's food. Because that's when they steal it. They think they're in charge. They can take whatever they want. So Cutwater and Billy think they're in charge. So they eat all of Prince Brat's food. Now again, we need to reread it, make sure it makes sense, that we didn't leave out any words. Whenever I reread mine, I like to follow each word with my finger to make sure I didn't leave out anything. So Cutwater and Billy think they are in charge, so they eat all of Prince Brat's food. Great job. So today, we have practiced referring to details and examples from the text when explaining what the text says explicitly, right there in the text, and when we draw inferences from the text. And we also describe the shift in power that occurs in this chapter. So make sure you come back for our next lessons or watch on TV for our next lessons to see what happens next. Does Jimmy stay in charge? What happens next? And as always, stay home, stay safe, and know that all of us love and miss you so much. Bye, guys.